Welcome to Gun Talk Nation. Today on Gun Talk Nation, we have one of the greatest pistol shooters of all time.
They call him the Great One.
Allegedly. But first, Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Caldwell Shooting Supplies. Eliminate the variables that make you miss, and by Springfield Armory. Also, ATN is known for being the cutting edge of technology in this complex time of federal and state regulations for businesses they attempt to reopen during the COVID-19 pandemic. ATN has created a thermal fever scanner ideal for use in restaurants, bars, retail locations, hey, maybe gun stores, gyms, summer camps, schools, and more, using their smart HD technology. The contactless, that's good these days, thermal imaging entry wizard is highly accurate and easy to use. Find out more at atncorp.com. Hey, if you own a business, you want to look high tech?
I could have swore you were talking about like a dude's like store, like Jim's store, like Jim's store. I was like, why would you use it in Jim's store?
Gyms or stores?
Yes.
Either one.
Yeah.
Either gyms or.
All right. Yeah. So let's welcome in Rob Latham, Team Springfield Armory, Team Safariland, Team Rob. Welcome in, man. That's right. Welcome in, man.
Hey. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I don't think we've done one of these like this before, even though we have literally known each other since you were a damn near a baby. But here we are.
Yeah.
Fucking good.
I had a question earlier.
Okay.
How did you receive the nickname the Great One?
Well, who started this?
Who started it?
Listen, I didn't start that crap. That wasn't me. No. Originally, I don't. Brian Enos, who was the guy that when I got into serious shooting, we were kind of a inseparable duo. At some point late in the game, before he quit, he started calling me the Great One, which I don't really like it that much, because the Great One is Jackie Gleason. If anybody really knows, Jackie Gleason was a great one. And if any of those people watching out there don't know who Jackie Gleason is, then they don't appreciate true humor. Anyway, and then a lady who was the marketing person at Springfield Armory at the time just thought that was awesome. That was hilarious. And she took it and ran with it. And it's been kind of one of those things that's been around, and I have to kind of, it's more like endure it than embrace it. You know what I mean? Because I don't think that way. But that's the backstory to it.
Okay.
Kind of Brian.
So we blame Brian.
Yeah.
Well, really, when you think back about it, isn't it always just easiest to blame Brian? I mean, in the end, can't we just blame Brian?
We could also credit him, right? Because you guys were battling it out in the beginning of action pistol stuff when you were getting started, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I know for a fact there were a few select, you look back in time, and there are a few blips on the time who were absolutely critical that you didn't know at the time, but turned out later to be absolutely critical to getting to the location you are now. And one was meeting Brian, and two was getting to shoot with Brian. And the two of us were inseparable. I mean, in the early days, it'd be hard for somebody that shoots competition now or is a shooter to understand what it's like. But since there weren't that many matches to go to, you spent, if you're a real shooter and all you ever want to do is shoot, and I think you understand kind of what that's like, you needed a kindred soul that felt exactly the same way that you did, that, you meet at each other's houses, you talk till 2:00 in the morning on days you had to go to work, and you probably said the same things every day, but all you could dream about was shooting and improving and equipment. It was truly the golden days. And one of the biggest blip on my radar would certainly be that time frame with Brian Enos, because us beating each other in practice and wailing on each other, and it was created a drive for both of us, because as much as we both wanted to win, we probably never liked anything better than beating each other. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like if you get a sparring partner that's pretty good balance to you, you guys can lay in pretty hard. And that's really where in the early days, I think the greatest amount of improvement in my skill came from the times with Brian. So I owe him a a great deal of credit to my development.
Well, I know a little bit of the backstory with shooting, how you getting started and shooting it with your family and your dad and him kind of going and being really, if you don't know, Rob's dad was instrumental in changing the world for our world because of his photography of people shooting guns. But Rob, when you started doing that, when did you know that you had a talent for this?
Last week.
Tomorrow. I'll figure that out tomorrow. And the reason I answer it that way is because I've never, I don't know. That's a very interesting question. I don't know that anybody has ever just outright asked me that. I always knew I was a good shot. When I was 10 years old, I was a better shooter than anybody else I knew. I mean, I didn't care who they were, any adults. Very competitive by nature. When I started shooting what I call informal competitions, that's when the family go out and we, even back when I was 12 or 14 years old, we were trying to shoot fast. It wasn't just accuracy or shooting pop bottles and things like that or hunting. We were actually, not that we timed each other, but we had multiple targets out there and we'd draw and see how fast you could hit it. And maybe it's because Dad had some amount of knowledge of like the practical shooting games, but to him, so he predated the whole competition thing for my dad. I mean, he never wanted to shoot competition, but they carried guns all the time. And being a very outdoorsy family, they went hunting all the time and or hiking and backpacking. And one of the big things of my dad was like, if you ever need this thing, you might need it fast. Yeah. So he really came more from the practical usage of it. And it wasn't a self-defense thing from the fact that he was a tactically minded person. It's just that, well, if you're out walking along and you run up on a bear or a mountain lion and it's hungry and it wants you, you're not going to have, 3 minutes to figure this thing out. And so his end of the practicality came from that, which is why we always had big caliber guns and why I was shooting, 44 Magnums when I was 12 years old. And so that really started to the point where then, we'd go shooting and everything was even faster than everybody else. And I say everybody was my family, my dad, my brothers, and my sister. And we all shot. I mean, I really didn't understand when I talked to other people later in my life that they didn't shoot. It seemed really weird that they didn't shoot because I just really didn't ever imagine a world where we didn't shoot. Well, yeah, of course there's guns. Right. Of course we went shoot. Well, we did. So that all led into the whole, I guess, competency and familiarity with firearms. And when I started learning about the competition world, I was already a very competitive person in other sports in school. Shooting was no different to me. I didn't want to just go shoot because it was fun to make empties and hit things. I wanted to see who was the best.
That's something that I think the really good competitors in anything, I don't think that they can just participate in a sport for fun.
No, it doesn't matter. They could be playing pickup sticks and Rob will be the first to elbow you out of the way.
It doesn't matter. I can remember early days where we were at the Bianchi Cup, and I don't remember which hotel it was, but it had a pool table. Well, a couple of them really knew how to play pool, but that didn't change those of us that didn't really hated getting our butts whipped at pool. So we'd go shoot during the day, and the first thing we'd do is get back to the hotel and fire up the pool table. And I couldn't play pool, but it didn't stop me from getting into it. And I have a lot of nice pool cues. But it was just another thing. I think if it was tiddlywinks, we'd be beating on each other trying to be the best one at it. So that's just kind of I guess that's either a character flaw, defect, or strength, depending on how you look at it.
Well, I think
but that started all. And so early on, I knew I was a good shot, but I never planned on what happened to me through my life happening. There was never a goal to become a professional shooter. I just wanted to shoot as well as I could. It's one thing fell into another.
Yeah. Talk about, and now we were just talking about this. Now you've started kind of branching out. You think, well, Rob Latham, he's a pistol guy, but you just got back from a precision rifle match.
I have proven at many other shooting sports that I am indeed a pistol shooter.
That's not true. That's not true. Rob's a good shot.
Pretty good shot at everything, but my level of competency with the handgun far exceeds the performances of the other games I've tried. Shot a lot of shotguns. I love sporting clays. As the first thing I ever did as a kid shot live game was we dove hunted here. I mean, if you're in this area and it's dove season, well, we didn't have to ask where everybody's at. We're all dove hunting.
Yeah.
And so I think I really like that the competition version of dove hunting or bird hunting of sporting clays, right? And as I've gotten older and older and older and slower and fatter, and the kids can outrun me, I can still shoot well, but I can't possibly match their flexibility. There have always been other games I've wanted to try. And you ever have in your life, I mean, you're not quite old enough, you guys probably not, to say, someday I got to try that. Right? Well, I'm doing that now. I'm now trying to, before I can't, do some of those games that I always wanted to do. In the early days of PRS, you would have called that sniper shooting, or you would have called that field shooting, depending on the course of fire.
Right.
And I've always had rifles, and I've always shot everything. I mean, fairly competent with anything. But I never got into the competition element of it because you kind of said it's I want to do well. So I don't like to go to match and see how I do. You know, that's not really the way to do it. I really want to be ready to go and have the right equipment and be trained up for it. But PRS and whatever it was called before it was PRS was always something I wanted to do because I can't explain the satisfaction you get when you hit something that's just way out there, right? I mean, we had a target at this range. I think it was 1315 or something. It was a little over 1,300 yards. And yeah, exactly. And
that's almost not quite a mile. It's 3/4 of a mile, something like that.
They shoot matches that are called ELR matches, where extreme long range, and they'll start at 700 and 800 yards and go out into 2000s. They'll get out to and some of the matches are 2-mile matches. Jeez. But for what they're trying to do in PRS, it's much like any other shooting sport. If you only practice what you need to be able to do, it would become very easy if you're really good at it, right? So let's say the best thing for 100, let's say you would never have to be able to do anything harder than from a fairly well-rested position hit a 12-inch circle at 400 yards, right? Well, if they held these matches and that's the hardest thing we had to do, there'd be a lot of perfects. There'd be a lot of clean scores. So by nature, they make it harder and harder and harder. So I think somebody said, yeah, let's stick a target at 1,300 yards and shoot at it with, medium caliber cartridges. And it was my holdover. I think my come up on that one was 12.4 mils or something like that. I can't remember. I shot a 6.5 Creedmoor with 140 ELDMs, so whatever that ballistics are. And that wasn't the big toughie because that's a known entity. We know the distance, we know the ballistics, and if you trued everything up, the drop on the cartridge, as long as you've got a real distance, an accurate distance, isn't that tough?
It's consistent.
It's wind.
Well, it's the wind. I this kind of wind in my life. Good Lord, it was. I hit the first shot. You had a series of targets. There was one at 9 something, 1,000 something, 11 something, and then 13 something. So you went up this hillside shooting at them, and you'd shoot and see where it hit, and you go, oh my God, that's twice as much wind as I thought, and you make a correction. So when I got to the last target on that, I'd hit the previous one with both shots. So I just added the same mental calculation of percentage of wind hold that I had to go from the previous one to that one. I said, and I'll ask guess, because a smart guy watching this will say, well, yeah, Rob, the wind speed and everything. I just said, I'm going to hold about 3.5 mils, because to me, that's like saying, I'm just going to aim at the moon. It was so far over there. It's totally a swag. When I fired that shot and hit it, there was nobody more surprised on the range than me.
So I want to know what gun are you using? I want to know, and I don't know how are you rigging your PRS gun?
What was that gun?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I shot in the gas gun division. So it's a Springfield Armory Saint 308, but the version we produce is more of a tactical short range CQB rifle. Right. So I got a real big heavy barrel from Proof Research.
Okay.
Right. This is how easy this gun was to bolt together. So I threw that barrel in it, literally took it apart, bolted it back together with that. I put an Arca rail on it so that I could put the bipods and things on it. I took the collapsible stock off it. I put one of the Magpul PRS, the big, long, heavy thing. Yeah. Right. And then I put a Trigger Tech, a diamond trigger in it.
Okay.
Which I think prototype is right. I know some people. Yeah. And then it was just optics. It's really nice to be me because I get better equipment than I deserve and I know more people than I should. So I got a Night Force 7-35 scope.
Wow.
And yeah, so basically that gun shoots exceptionally well for a gas gun. I'm not going to say it shoots like the bolt guns can shoot, but it's for an auto. It's amazing. And in some of these matches, there's so much manipulation occurring that shooting the gas gun is a little easier for somebody like me that's not maybe quick on the rolling the bolt as somebody else.
So PRS is really, I think right now, PRS is one of the hot shooting games out there. It's still, as happens with these shooting games, the hot one is not the biggest one. It's just the hot one. So what's the difference for you coming from doing so much action pistol stuff to if someone goes, well, what about PRS? I mean, those are way different disciplines.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I don't know if there's anything more diametrically opposed than shooting action pistol and PRS. Pistol stage might have 32 rounds and the whole thing might take, 25 seconds with multiple movements of positions with extra shots. PRS, our time limits for every stage on this match were 90 seconds. Okay. And I think the shortest stage was 6 hits and the longest stage was 15. And I'm not aware of anybody having cleaned the 15 shot stage. I think the best score was a 12. But I think the only thing that I bring from competency of the one game to the other is experience in how to perform under pressure. But nothing about the gun, nothing about holding the gun, nothing about my positioning, because most of our pistol shooting is standing, and none of this is standing. It's makeshift, bags and positions on rocks and trees, prone, and it's basically field positions. So as far as technical skill, I'm a pretty good trigger puller. So I'm pretty good at pulling the trigger well, even with a pistol, without moving the gun. So I think that's probably the only mechanical skill, because I'm nowhere near flexible enough to fit into some of their positions.
Yeah, it's a lot like what Michael Jordan did when he went to baseball. I mean, still an athlete, but
he got a few base hits.
Yeah, so I'm still a shooter, but I don't think I would say that I'm as good a PRS shooter as Michael Jordan was a baseball player. So let's be honest about this here. I want everybody to watch to know I'm not claiming to be the next.
No, I said it. I said it. Like, he doesn't have to say it. I just throw it out there.
Yeah, you just don't answer.
Yeah,
you just don't tell him he's wrong. Yeah. So at this match, it's not scored as far as like bullseye, A zone, 10 shot. It's just a hit or a miss.
When you fire a shot, you are praying to hear one thing, that is impact.
Yeah.
If they say impact, that means hit. If they say nothing, that means no hit. And they said nothing way too many times when I shot in the match.
You're looking up at the range officer going, anything? Hello?
Yeah.
I'm trying real hard here. Throw me a bone.
Yeah.
You saw the dirt hit below the target, right? Yeah. That was frag.
It's like, hey, dude, that's close. That's really close. Come on, throw me a bone here.
That would scare the hell out of somebody.
Oh yeah. If that dude was standing there, if that was an animal, I might have bounced one into him. Come on, throw me something. Don't give me a zero on this thing.
I would have had to track him for a while, but
I had an AR, dude. whack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gas gun division. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot of different PRS competitions out there. Some you have to trek too. So you're walking to a lot of these stages too. It's not like you're just, hanging out in one area. You got to actually move.
Rob, you had to do a little walking, huh?
Oh my God. I think I died twice. I had 17 heart attacks. I'll be honest. So it didn't look that bad as we were walking up the hill. But when you think you see the top of the hill and you get to that, it's like a sand dune. You get to the top of that sand dune, that's the high point. That wasn't even a tenth of the high point.
You're like, wait, there's more? There's more?
So they were pretty smart in how they did this. They had us park, so the hill went this direction away from us. They had us park over there. So when you looked up the hill, you're like, oh yeah, it's all right there. Oh, no, it wasn't half a mile down from the highest point. Further in rise. Geniuses they are to get us suckers into that. I knew I was in trouble on the first stage when I had to walk up a third or a quarter way up the first hill to shoot my first stage. And then we came back down and then had to walk back up again.
Oh, no.
You're like, but wait, I just went down.
Wait, can't you just stay up here? Don't let me give up this ground that we've already taken.
He should have pulled the Babe Ruth and had a pitch runner.
Yeah.
We had a 40-pound pack. I had a 40-pound pack with all my gear, and that didn't all make it out the second day. Some of that stuff stayed in the truck. You know what? I don't need two.
I don't need this. I don't need this.
I don't need 2 bags. You know what? How many rounds are we shooting? 80, huh? Yeah, but see, I'm not going to get them all off, so I don't need to take that many. I mean, we're talking. That's how bad it was. I took out my extra rangefinder, all that stuff that I pride myself in having duplicates of. So I everything, and boy, by the time I finished the first day, I'm like, man, if I make it back to my car, none of this stuff is coming out again.
If
my rifle has weights on it, you'll laugh at this. It has the Victors have M-lock handguards, right? So they make weights stick on. Weights make the gun kick less.
Right.
It also the balance right in the right spot. So that AR I'm shooting, that rifle weighs, I think I weighed it yesterday. It weighs 19 and a half pounds with
Holy
the light.
jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It doesn't move much.
It's so accurate. It doesn't kick. Do you know what? I would have given that gun away halfway through the first day.
It's so
I said,
heavy.
listen, you just have this.
You know what? There are going to be listeners that are sitting here listening to this going, he'd give it away during half. So he's going to create a following at all his matches.
Let's show up at Rob's matches.
Yeah, because I'm not going to make you do anything like that. So a couple of my friends, a guy from Night Force named Sean and Greg Hamilton from Proof, they are pretty much the masters of that adventure, trekking, shooting thing. Those guys have to carry everything. They get to a position and they're walking miles over days. And I used to make fun of them and says, man, yeah, you're shooting a 6.5 PRC bolt gun with a suppressor on it. It only weighs 14 pounds. Man, that thing must kick all over the place. I now think that's the greatest idea ever.
Right. It's a balance.
Proof carbon barrels. That now seems like the best idea I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It is.
But it was fun. Tremendous challenge. I'm way too late in my life to become great at that, but it doesn't matter because I'm out there to hit every target I can. I mean, It's really really a battle against myself.
So Rob, I know that at Springfield Armory, one of the things that people probably don't know you do is a lot of the helping them develop new guns. One set of guns we've been shooting this year are the XDM Elites.
Oh, the Elites.
Mm-hmm.
Those are cool.
Yeah, they are cool. So kind of how it works. Let's take the original 525, which your dad actually had before they gave me one, which I'm still a little
salty
about. You never stop. You can't stop the development. You can't look at the 1911. It's been out for 100 plus years, and we're still doing things better and making them better and finding changes to them. Well, the XD is now XDM is a 15 or whatever year old platform in general, but we've constantly updated it. So they're looking at what we want. They look at what the shooters want. When you'll have a meeting and say, "Listen, what can we do to make this better?" It says, "Well, what about?" Well, I've got one right in front of me. So let's say you want to start addressing the issues with the the reloads. So they put a big mag well on it, right?
Yep.
Just to make it easy. That came straight from the competition shoot.
Oh yeah.
But the reality is that's now a popular thing for the tactical guys because they realize if the space that they're using on the gun and in their rig isn't causing them a problem, why would you not want to reload the gun better?
Right.
You know,
It's
you
not
no
a
longer-
concealed carry gun. I mean,
No,
it's if you're going to have a big gun, have a big gun.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the battles you always have with people is they'll take the smallest gun. Always pick the smallest gun. No, take the biggest thing you're willing to carry. If that's the tiniest gun, I'm good with that. That's a personal decision. But when it comes shooting time, a bigger gun is easier to shoot than a small gun. Not that there aren't small guns that shoot well, but the first thing you do in the competition world is start adding weight, 19-pound AR, things like that. But it's all a trickle down. So when we sit in those meetings, they're saying, well, yeah, Rob, we're not going to build a XDM like the one that you've been messing with that has a 1.5 pound trigger. That's not going to work because, there's nobody here, including myself, who would ever want that. But it teaches us the capability of the platform. And then we start making subtle changes to the gun. So it's a series of improvements because that's all you really would need is to constantly being addressing anything that can be improved. And that's kind of where my world is. That's what a competition shooter does is they fight for an infant, a tiny improvement.
Well, yeah, you'll sit around in your lazy boy and daydream about, well, what if the trigger did this?
What if I did this?
Yeah.
Well, things like you talk about the trigger. So the trigger shape, I don't know if you can even see that good, Ryan, but the trigger shape it's flat now.
Right.
And spent more time dealing with what the angle should be on that trigger than you'd ever think. You would probably think, well, so make the trigger flat.
Right.
Well, it's more than just flat. It's a position it sits at rest, and it's a position where it makes contact and starts moving the sear out of the way to the position that it moves after it goes. So if the trigger starts like this, it ends up like that. But if it starts like that, it ends up like that. So you'll have 10 people in the room, and the shooters all follow a pretty similar. They're very similar. I mean, they're going to give you pretty similar feedback. If you and I went out and shot, if the three of us went out and shot one day, we'd all come back kind of liking the same thing. But somebody that doesn't shoot wouldn't know that.
Right.
Does that make sense? Whereas we'll go out and shoot and say, yeah, a little adjustment here and a little tweak here, add a bump to the mag well or to the grip safety, and let's add 2 rounds to the magazine, because the average guy says, well, hold 19. Says, yeah, but it could hold 21 pretty easily.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's where those minuscule advancements occur. But that's been my whole life. When I go out and practice, make a quantum leap in skill. It's a bit of improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the meta trigger is a good trigger. The over travel being built in, that's something we've had some fun with. And we just lost Rob.
We lost Rob for a second. We just started talking about the meta trigger, that's the match enhanced trigger assembly.
Did we say something that offend you?
I was a call was coming in and I pushed the wrong button.
He hung up on us.
No worries.
How dare him.
I was so trying not to hang up on anybody.
And that's it. Interview over.
We were talking about the meta trigger while you were gone.
Yes.
I'll give you a freeze frame to go to.
That's right. Does this look good?
Well, something as simple as, the more you shoot, the more you recognize how important the trigger is.
Mm-hmm.
The trigger, even Jeff Cooper said, the probably most important element of shootability of a rifle was the trigger. So because we talk about triggers all the time, but somebody's not really into guns, probably doesn't get that. They're like, well, I don't care about the trigger. I care about the stippling and the slots in the slide and the coloration. And first thing I want to do is get Cerakoted.
Yeah, but it looks cool.
I want it to look really cool. So, Rob, we were actually doing something with it, and the way I tried to explain it was because I was trying to say how important the trigger is, and it's why we always talk about it. I said, if you're out on a target with your pistol and you're aimed in, and you could just simply blink and make the gun go off.
My God, would that be awesome?
Like it would solve like 90% of the
Everything.
problems.
Everything. Matter of fact, funny you say that, because the rules of competition require, in most shooting, require the gun be fired with the strong hand trigger finger. Let me tell you why. I had a buddy who put a cable release on the gun.
Really?
And he put it in a rubber ball. So doing this
He could bite on it and make the trigger go?
So he would sit there and hold the gun and go like this.
So he would bite he would move his jaw.
No way.
And he could make the trigger, pull the trigger basically.
Right.
And there was no manipulation of the gun, no movement.
No, all he had to do was sit here and go like this.
Wow.
Just move his
So think
mouth.
about
Just
that for
close
a
his
second.
mouth.
So there was never any flinch.
Right.
There was never any change of tension in your hand. Because when you do this, and you start pulling this, I don't care who you are, there's going to be flexors. There's going to be tension changes. And there's no way not to. So how do you get away from this having to do anything?
Wow.
That's using your noggin.
Okay. I know a guy that set one up on a servo.
Okay.
Right? So he'd sit there, he'd hold the gun, and then he'd push it, and the servo would go bzzz and fire the gun.
Yeah.
So going to fire the gun wherever it was pointed at that instant.
Yeah.
So you sit there literally, and this is why this stuff isn't even legal now. So he'd sit there and go boom, and the servo it was a servo like off an airplane, a little airplane, go zzz, and then fire the gun. But you could hold the gun absolutely dead steady while that was happening.
Oh my gosh.
Therefore, they outlawed things like that.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
There you go.
So we have thought of everything.
See, that's what we're saying. Sitting in his easy chair. What if we did a servo?
That's where all the danger occurs, is when we sit and think too long.
Watching
And
SpongeBob.
I can't stop thinking about it.
It's a sickness.
Matter of fact, that makes me think of another thing to try.
Uh-oh. The thing is, it's like with gun stuff or whether it's NASCAR or whatever, you figure out something that's not against the rules, so you kick everybody's butt and then they'll outlaw it because it's not fair.
Right. You only get it so long. Because for the sake of competition, especially, I mean, even Formula One does it now. I mean, they're not spec cars like NASCARs, but they're very, very similar. Indy cars are spec cars, but they're trying to create an environment where all the equipment's the same, which is actually exactly the opposite of what I want.
Yeah.
I want a thing that's just a little tiny bit better than everybody else has.
What these guys are doing is, and Rob, it's like, well, you didn't say I couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere in there that I can't do this.
It's kind of funny, right? The current rule book for USPSA, when you start reading down, like whether in production division or USPSA, it says specifically this: if it doesn't say you can't use it, that doesn't mean you can.
Uh-huh.
They're giving themselves a window.
There's an out.
They're giving themselves a little bit of room where they said, okay, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. This is allowed, this is allowed, this is allowed. They're basically saying, listen, if we've overlooked anything, you need to ask us about it, because if you try it and we deem it to be unfair or against what the rules intention was, they learned a long time ago.
You could get DQ'd.
Hey.
And then you'd go, but they didn't say. Well, but yeah, and it's probably one of those things where you're like, but obviously you knew you were going to be getting over on everybody on this. Come on.
You knew why you were doing it. When I built so there's I'm the single stack that I'm shooting right now is technically a cheater gun that's legal. So my slide is
Rob Latham is a cheater.
If you're not cheating, you're not winning.
Because I personally don't think it should be allowed. But since they've allowed it, I can't not have it if I want it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like nuclear deterrence. So I've got a one-off gun built. It has a 5.4-inch barrel. It says it has to have a bushing, right?
Okay.
It doesn't. The barrel can't be a bull barrel. So the slide's been modified to take an officer's model bushing, which allows it to have a bull barrel. The material I removed to put the officer's model bushing in it is exactly the same as the material replaced by the bushing. So there's no performance difference without having the bushing, but it has the bushing that's required legal now.
It's
Is
required.
it better? I'll be honest with you. I don't think I really shoot the gun any better, but if in my mind I'm thinking no stone unturned.
Right.
I mean, everything has been tested. The average person would not even be able to feel it or notice it. I don't know that I can shoot it better, but I had to know, right?
You had to try it. Yeah.
I got to know.
So what is it when you think about people who shoot competition, people who do well in competition? I mean, it seems like everyone can shoot well at the top level.
Mhm.
Is there something that the best ones do better? I mean, I think about just planning the movement or when or how you're going to reload. I mean, is there something that like the best ones do better?
There might be a 1 or 2% difference in shooting skill between the first place and the 10th place guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason the same guys tend to populate the top are not necessarily because of their potential, I should say, call it potential. Because if we all went out there and gave everybody 20 tries, every one of them would shoot a run that was so similar that I'm not sure that there wouldn't be ties because of the way the scoring is, but there would be a fraction of a percentage between them. But the guys that populate the upper finish positions have the ability to perform at the highest level the most often and the most consistently. So let's say, let's pick somebody, one of our buddies, let's pick Max Michelle. Max and I could go out there and on a steel challenge string of fire, shoot it all 20 times. And Max is going to have more good runs than I'm going to have because he's better than I am at that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
That's his game.
Yeah. So if we do 20 runs, I'm going to have one run that's as fast as any of his runs, and he's going to have 5 of them that fast.
Right.
And I'm going to have 10 runs that we call keepers, and he's going to have 15. And of those keepers, he's going to have 5 of them or 4 of them that they keep for score that are going to be a little bit better than mine.
Yeah.
That's just it's a consistency. It's not necessarily a potential. It's a realization that he's a little tiny bit faster than I am.
Well,
right?
yeah, you can do it,
he's
but
also
can you do it
looking faster
again?
Yeah.
And again.
Well, it's a big mental game too. I mean, there's
Yes, and I think that's where I think that performance comes from a certain. Well, there's a confidence involved in it because if you walk up there and say, "I'll roll the dice and see what happens," the results are going to be inconsistent at best. But somebody that's practiced, say we take a Bianchi Cup. So over the course of my shooting career, I've been shooting the Bianchi match since 1982, every single year since 1982. So whatever that is, older than you are, right? But it's one of those deals. So many runs, I've made thousands of runs through that course of fire. So there's no stone unturned. I mean, I've tried everything,
Right.
and I've memorized extensive courses of fire to the degree where I can walk out there and give you an 80% run and have not shot for months.
Sure.
80% run isn't going to win anything, but it's better than 9 out of 10 people can do. And if you give me a chance to really fine tune those things, I'm picking up little pieces, right? It's a little piece where I'll remember, I got a little bit more time there. I got to be a little more precise on that shot, keep the gun moving on the mover. It's tiny little things that's the separator. That's really the difference. And we come into the match and, I shoot a 1912 and the next guy down has never shot a 1912, but I just shot one in the match. That's the differences. And part of it is confidence, but there's a critical amount of experience involved in it. I mean, you've had to been in the fire enough times that I know it's coming. I know what this is going to be like.
So
I get all the time, how do you deal with pressure?
right.
Because they assume that you found a way to negate or delete pressure. I quit trying to do that a long time ago. I never could do it. I could never find a way to not feel pressure. So I just learned how to shoot while I was under pressure. It was easier to learn how to shoot while under pressure than it was to try to figure out how to not feel the pressure when I was.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
Just, it's not going to go away. So just learn to deal with it. So going full circle, we're talking about shooting competitions and then how you got started and wanting to shoot fast, and your dad talking about, hey, if something goes down, you're going to have to be able to shoot pretty quickly and hit your target. That's true for competition. It's true for concealed carry. So the people who are listening to this, how do you learn to shoot fast? And I guess I'm thinking about having the wheels come off to figure out how fast you can go.
The coolest thing about shooting is as long as you're safe, the worst thing we do is miss.
Yeah.
Right? As long as you're safe. In a practice environment, missing means you didn't hit the target, but there's no damage other than that. In a real life situation, you can't probably have quite that kind of attitude. We're just hanging out and see what happens. When I raced motorcycles, there was a cost to going too fast.
Sure.
Right? There's often a physical cost, if not just the monetary cost of the repairs of the machine when you crash and break some things.
Right.
Shooting is like that. As long as you're safe and maintain control of the gun, just because you shot so fast and missed, there's no cost to it. So we're able to access that speed limit pretty regularly. We can constantly find out. We can crash all the time. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, but a lot of people, and I know what you're saying, a lot of people don't like to miss. And it's like they're not willing to go so fast that they miss.
But how are you not improving unless you're testing your boundaries?
Yeah.
You can't even test the boundaries. You have to smash the boundaries. You have to find a position where the boundaries, because the limitation a mental thing where you don't think it could be any better.
Mm-hmm.
Is that stupid? Because you have the best shooter that ever lived hasn't been born yet, right? There's maybe somebody who is currently the best and has been the best, but there's somebody coming that's going to make all of us that are out here right now look like beginners. I look at the speeds that we shot when we began, and we thought we were smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's average. It's not even competitive. And the whole process of training has to have several elements. One part of it is an exploratory part, and you have to find out what you both can and cannot do. And then we have to figure out how to make more of the can't do's can. We have to. Just the normal escalation of skill and the development mandates that you fall off the cliff a couple times.
Like you're saying, if someone is used to going bang, 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 and they get nice little beautiful groups, maybe they can shoot really fast, but they've never tried.
People don't want to. They're not willing to give up that they value so much. See, I'm not scared of missing. I guess the way to put it is I'm not scared of missing. For me, this is all about score. When I shoot a competition, I don't care if I walk off the line and say I'm the one that dropped the least amount of points any more than I care that I say I'm the guy that had the fastest clock time. Because neither of those elements exclusive to the other makes any difference in the score. You have to shoot fast enough that your time is relevant.
Yeah.
And you have to shoot points to be relevant. And sometimes, and this is really uncomfortable for a lot of shooters, sometimes the way to get the best score is to drop a lot of points.
Just go fast.
And be fast. Right. Sometimes, you hear all these silly sayings. What's the one, smooth is fast and fast is furious, or whatever the hell it is. It's
too fast, too furious.
Smooth has nothing to necessarily do with fast. Something done very, very well will look smooth, and it may not be smooth. It might just be fast and violent. And you have to be willing, especially in training, you have to find the limitation.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you back off the limitation with the goal being anything other than building some consistency, you'll never see any advancement. I know shooters that have been shooting for 25 years and have never gotten 1% better because they've written the endpoint for it already. Says, I'm comfortable right there. That's as fast as I'm comfortable. My God, I haven't been comfortable shooting at the level I'm at for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've always been uncomfortable because comfort is a safety net that always keeps you at a level where you can't possibly be competitive.
Well, yeah.
Be sliding.
So, I love what you're saying, Rob, about there's not a big consequence to figuring this out.
No.
As long as you do it safely,
Mm-hmm.
you just go as fast as you can. And what was it one instructor said one time? That's a nice group. Go faster.
Yeah.
Right.
Go so fast that your group is going off of the target. and keeping them on the berm, right? You don't want to, again, being safe, but then you can figure out, because maybe if someone went as fast as they could go, they'd find out, wow, I didn't actually miss that many shots. I just I only have to rein it in a little bit.
Yeah, you weren't as out of control as you think you are. And most shooters never find this statement out, is your level of control is generally far beyond your level of comfort.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
That's a good one.
Most shooters never find out that if they're limited by comfort is that process that allows reaffirmation of the visual process. So you can do a check and balance, like, okay, guns on the side, sights look pretty good. Okay, I better check. Yeah, they're still good, and shoot. That's slow. That's slow. It needs to be sights are aligned and gun starts firing. It has to work that way. So some elements to perform your best have to be activated by a subconscious motion, and most shooters are not willing to shoot enough to be comfortable to give up the control.
Right.
But every one of us do things in our everyday life. If you can drive a car, you're doing something that's way, way harder than shooting well.
Right.
Shooting well, easy compared to driving a car, yet you've done it for 20, 30, 40 years and more. But the biggest thing that I always use in the classes is like you're walking right now and standing up. That is infinitely more difficult than shooting well. But you've been practicing it since you were 6 months or a year old.
Right.
And you fell down endlessly. You've endlessly fell down and kept getting up. And that's how you have to look at shooting.
And then you started to run.
You can't live beyond the control level in a competition, because you're going to miss so regularly, it won't matter how fast you are. But we have to find that spot and stop there.
Right.
Okay. Like if I'm practicing and I'm shooting at 98%, that's not going to work for me. I need to be at 105, 110%. And then I need to be able to identify what the change has to happen to bring me back to control level instead of out of control. It's little tiny pieces, but over the decades, and it's not years for me, it's decades for me, little tiny pieces have been planted subconsciously to the point now, someone really good, it's easier for a really good shooter to shoot really well than for an inexperienced bad shooter to shoot mediocre. And that's unfair, but it's true.
Yeah. Rob, thanks for being with us today, man.
This is a blast. I think I talked too much and didn't let you guys get to work.
It was fun.
That's the problem, is like we want to have a little bit of conversation from our side, but then you start talking and I'm like, holy crap, that's interesting. Like, it's way better when he just does it.
Well, yeah. Welcome to the new Rob Latham podcast.
I like it.
Hey, man, I'll do this anytime you want. I love talking to you guys. I mean, when you say I sit on that sofa right there and I think about guns all day long,
Yeah.
when I lay in bed, I'm thinking guns all the time.
I know.
Well, I am.
Awesome. He's one of the best guys. Rob Latham, thanks for being on with us.
All right, man. Thanks for having me, guys. You guys take it easy.
All right.